Hi, my name is John Daigle. I'm with the Titan Outlet Store in Moorhead. And with this video, I'm going to give you an idea of some of the things that I look for when I inspect a wheel loader. The things when I look at when I inspect a wheel loader, first of all, as I look at the paint, see what kind of condition the paint is in. This particular machine is a pretty old machine, so the paint is in pretty tough shape. You can see that it's faded and chipped and scratched, and it's got a lot of hours on it, so it's had some use, and that's why it looks the way it does. I look at the grill, make sure everything's okay there, make sure it's not busted. If it is, you can decide whether to replace it or not. Sometimes they're kind of expensive. Again, on the condition, I look at make sure that the covers aren't all bent. I make sure the side panels aren't all bent. I make sure, or just generally look for any damage. Check the batteries. See, look at the terminals, see if they're corroded or not. Sometimes you can see what the date is on the battery. If it's pretty old, you know that it's probably at some point going to need to be replaced. Maybe sooner than later. Okay, I take a look in the engine compartment. I look at the coolers, the radiators. I look to see if there's any obvious leaks. I'm not a mechanic, so I don't dig in too awful deep. You can tell if something's leaking. There's that particular filter there, looks like has a leak. It probably just needs to be tightened up a little bit. I try to check the hoses, I check the electrical. It's a good idea to take the air cleaner cover off and inspect the air cleaner. Make sure that's in good condition. A lot of times, most machines these days will have a air cleaner indicator. This will tell you if the air filter is restricted, and basically it gives you another way to know if you need to replace it or not. I look for fuel leaks, injection pump leaks, any coolant leaks. I look at the condition of the radiator, sometimes you can see it, sometimes you can't, but check the fan belts and the belt idlers. Okay, I also check the engine oil. In this case, it looks like it's brand new oil, and it's at the high mark, so we're in good shape on this. In regards to the tires, you can see what percentage is remaining here. Again, you kind of have to have a point of reference from what a new tire looks like. I'm guessing this is probably about 25, maybe 30% remaining. I look at the fenders and the flaps, see what kind of condition they're in. I look at the stairs. This particular bracket here is bent, but that's typical for a machine with 12,000 hours on it. This one's got a pretty good cut in it. Sometimes those cuts, if they're too deep and into the cords, they'll cause it to leak. If they're not too deep, a lot of times they really won't bother much. Look at the sidewalls, see if there's any chunks missing out of the sides. Okay, with regard to the bucket, I check out the sides to see if they're bent or damaged. You can kind of tell how much abuse a machine has had by the condition of the bucket. This particular bucket is a jumbo bucket. It's twice the size of a normal bucket for this size of machine. It's a light material bucket, so it's not necessarily typical. I check the cutting edge, see make a guesstimate of what percentage of wear is remaining on that. I check the frog, they call this the frog, the base plate. You can see if it's cracked or worn out or in the bolts. I look in the corners here, the seams, see if there's any cracks in any of the welds. I look at the general condition of the bucket. You can see that this bucket is in really very good shape yet. It's used, but it's not worn out. I look at all the hoses. This particular one here, that's just a grease fitting. I look to try to see if they've been greasing it. That's a good thing. If you can see grease here, that means then typically they've probably been greasing it. I look at the condition of the hoses. This one's all wet. You can tell that something's not right. It's got a leak somewhere, whether it might just need to be tightened up, it might need to be replaced. I look for leaks everywhere, the bucket cylinders, the hoses. Like there's some, you can see that this one's leaking a little bit. It's got some seepage, it's not pouring out. That may go away with some use. A lot of times when they just sit, they'll start to leak. Doesn't necessarily mean at this point that that's a huge problem. Check the cylinders. You want to check see if they're scratched or scored. If they are scratched or scored, that will take out your seal here, and that would cause a leak like that. Next thing I check for is tightness in the pins. Each one of these joints has pins and bushings, and if they don't get greased enough, and as they get old and used, they'll wear out because there's a lot of friction on them, and they can get loose. If you're planning to have a machine for a long time, typically if you're going to take care of your machine, you would replace those as they wear out. Some people don't. So I check the condition of the pins and bushings to see if they're tight, including in all the areas as far as where the boom pins onto the loader. I check the boom cylinder connections, the Z-bar here, all the linkage in the Z-bar. I check the bucket linkage, see what tightness is in this area. I check the articulation joint. You can't really tell by looking at it whether it's loose or tight, but you can tell when you're running the machine. You can wiggle the steering wheel a little bit and tell if there's a big lot of clunking or what's going on. So, or have somebody watch that particular joint for you. So the next thing would be the cab. I check the condition of the seat. I check to see what kind of seat it is, whether it's a mechanical suspension or an air-ride suspension seat. This particular is cloth covered and it's in really good shape, air-ride seat. I check to make sure that all the levers work, all the levers are there. I check to make sure I start it and run it, make sure it moves forward in all gears and reverse in all gears. I check things like the wiper, make sure that works. I check the lights, check the flashers. I also obviously check the hours, see how many hours are on it. I check the headliner, see if it's dirty. A lot of times, I mean, if people take care of their stuff. Check the radio, see if that works. I check the heaters to make sure they work. This particular one has a rear window defrost. Check to make sure that works. I look at the different switches and whatnot in here and try to determine exactly what all features they have, this particular machine has. So this is where I will start the machine and check for looseness in the loader, check how it operates and see how it starts. Look for any unusual smoke or listen for any unusual noises. Everything seems to be pretty good on this machine. I like to check for looseness in the different joints on the machine. See, at least that way then you can tell the customer exactly what you've got. As I move this, I don't see a whole lot of movement in any of the joints up here. As far as I can tell, everything looks pretty good on this particular machine. For having 12,000 hours on it, I would say that the loader is in very tight condition. I'm going to check the steering now. I do that. You can hear a little bit of clunking there. If you've got somebody who can watch it for you, they can tell you what that looseness is. Most of the time, the steering cylinder pins and bushings get a little bit loose. Check the backup alarm, make sure that works. Check the parking brake. When I put it in gear, it wouldn't let me go anywhere. So I take the parking brake off, and yep, the parking brake is obviously working. I check to make sure it goes in forward and reverse. And then I get going with it and try to make sure that it works and all the gears work. I checked the detent for the bucket, make sure that's working like it should be. Return to dig, and that works out just fine. So this is John Daigle. I'm with the Titan Outlet in Moorhead. Hopefully I've given you a good idea of some of the things that I look for when I inspect a wheel loader, and thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching this Titan Outlet instructional video. If you are interested in viewing more videos, click on the links you see here or continue browsing our YouTube channel. If you have any feedback, questions, or would like to suggest a future video, be sure to leave a comment below.